Hey everybody, this is Rydo and we're back to another live stream of Shadowverse. Today is Friday, January 22nd. I decided to stream early for fear that I would stream late otherwise. So, like really late. Wednesday's stream particularly did not go particularly well, on top of having network trouble. I don't know what really is going on with my network. It could be in part that the time network time protocol NTP servers were just not being connected to, or my setup was wrong there. I did find that I had mistyped something. Instead of typing in the word server on one line, I had typed in the word server with a B. So there was a minor mistake in the config file on my router, but I don't know if that was really the case. It definitely was getting my entire router to be several minutes off, and even when I tried to force it, it was still a couple minutes off. And I finally fixed that. So maybe it was a timing thing, particularly when playing a game like this. That would make sense. But I also wouldn't be surprised if we start the stream and start playing and we run into network troubles. I think what happened in a more detailed way is my internet definitely went out for a while. And when it went out, that allowed the router to drift away from the time a significant amount, which seems weird. Frankly, it should be able to only be a few seconds off after even a day of not being connected, not entire minutes. But that must have been the triggering force, and then it could have just not correct itself after that point. Or it's just my network. Like, it seems like everything's working now fairly well. But I also, once again, would not be surprised if once we start doing 2 or 3 things, we start running into trouble. The good news is I've unenabled the Great Suspender plugin, and that very possibly is a plugin I'm just going to stop using, and have all the tabs I'm going to talk about today already open and loaded, not suspended. And it's only taking up 22 to maybe 25% of my RAM on my new computer, which, yeah, that would have probably been closer to 50% of my RAM otherwise, but nowadays that's, well, a significant amount of RAM. It's not a huge amount. And I may just always disable the Great Suspender plugin before I stream and then re-enable it after I stream. That might be the way. For the accountability section, we can go very quickly through that. I'm still mostly not accomplishing much. I did exactly 1 episode earlier this morning of The Walking Dead final season, and it's just a slow game, really. And there's not a lot to say, particularly if you're trying not to spoil things. But there's just a lot of things happening that we would have seen before in previous versions of the Walking Dead games, and it just doesn't feel like they're doing anything new or different. So yeah, the only thing I will say, and it's only a slight spoiler, is that there's a kid. Since you're mostly only dealing with kids and the only adults in the story are people that are your enemies, there is a kid that proposes this idea that zombies may still have some humanity in them, some kind of soul, and that they aren't just monsters, as it were. Guess we're just going to play Forestcraft or Dragoncraft, which means Forestcraft. And that he makes this like beginnings of a religion, beginnings of a cult mentality that the people should leave the zombies alone, that they're peaceful if you don't happen to make any noise near them or be anywhere where they can sense you, which is just kind of a ridiculous argument, and I couldn't even play along to gain the favor of the character. I was like, no, this is insanity. This is just total BS. Here, these are just zombies, and sure, certainly a lot of that is probably a just predefined bias, having seen so many zombie stories before. It is very possible. I think it was like a Korean, almost like Twilight Zone show I once saw where zombies take over the world, but they still have sentience, or they regain their sentience, and so they're putting this woman on trial because she brutally killed so many zombies, and they're now going, yeah, you enjoyed killing us, you were smiling all the way, and they were, it may have actually been one of the ABCs of Death anthology movies actually that was in. But yeah, I couldn't buy into that idea at all. It's ridiculous. There also maybe is a little bit of sexism in me, in the fact that a lot of the ways I'm raising AJ is a lot more toughen up, get harder, become even more of a survivalist than the way I think I treated Clementine when I was playing as Lee in the first season. But if that is even the case, it's minimal differences in my mind, not a lot, because I was trying very hard to turn Clementine into a survivor also, and you could almost take this false bravado of the Walking Dead series to say you've succeeded in playing the previous Walking Dead games because Clementine is still alive when so many other people aren't alive. But then again, obviously that's going to be the case because the story was written that way. I did finish the third episode of 4 episodes in the final season, which was made by Skybound Games. I noticed subtitles completely wrong, saying different words. I think they pretty much have dropped the color thing in the breadth of one episode. They dropped different background colors, and they may have slightly improved the difficulty settings because I didn't die on every single QuickTime event, but they're still definitely dropping the ball as far as just telling an interesting and enthralling story. I'm super not interested in what's going on. The only other thing I did is, besides my usual dailies on Destiny's Child, which an argument certainly could be made that I'm wasting too much time on that every day. And I'm playing some other games on my phone too. I'm playing a Hanafuda Japanese card game called Koi Koi. There's a Android version of that. I'm playing that and just seeing if I can beat all the AIs in single player on that. And the Nutaku adult game, College Days, updated a little bit, not as much as they should have. That they had a very long period of no updates there. It was like 4 or 5 months, but now they seem to be getting back to the point of releasing new content. And I'm still playing the spin-off Destiny Child game, Defense Wars, which is, there's really no reason for me to be playing that, but I'm definitely wasting more and more time because don't even know if I have a good reason.
May the forest
I'm
be
just
with
wasting more time. I also did the Lego set I finished. I don't think I mentioned which Lego set it was. It was a Lego's idea set that included a pterodactyl, a triceratops,
yourselves too
and a
Help me, fairy.
T-Rex.
Act of love.
And it was a pretty good set. It's very big pieces, and I was thinking I was going to put it in combination with a museum set that was a Lego Cities build, but then when I pulled out the front face of the museum, which is all that set really gave you, which is basically less than 100 pieces, the front face of a museum, because a lot of Lego City sets only really are the front face of a building and not the rest of it. Like, the front face of the museum building is just nowhere big enough to actually hold the dinosaurs. I'm limited to either deciding,
You're strong.
like, I could either say that the museum is under construction and have the dinosaurs just in the open air behind it, or I could say that they're in a garden, and then they still would be very big. The dinosaurs, the T-Rex is bigger than most of even the expert series of buildings, or at least as tall as a lot of the expert series of buildings. It's probably 2.5 stories tall, so it just doesn't really match. There's a Lego Jurassic Park set that would go nicely with that also, but there is this weird split when you start having way too many Legos, where there is a microfig scale that makes a lot of sense for most of the sets, and then there's some things that are either at more of a display shelf scale that is bigger, or they are just so weird that they wouldn't really mix in any kind of microfig build. Like, at the moment, I have the beginnings of a Christmas village. That's probably the most developed. I have a whole bunch of Lego expert buildings that can integrate into either a Lego city or a Lego Christmas village. I have the beginnings of a city, which isn't that much, and then I have moderate success so far in a Lego beach and ocean, but that's specifically excluding many sets that are just on shelves, which, yeah, that's may just be how it should be broken down into. Frankly, if Legos were a little bit cheaper, it would make a lot of sense to build a set and then give it away, but I guess I am a bit of a Lego hoarder. The other thing I would warn people about, as far as doing the Lego Ideas dinosaur set, is if you are slightly obsessive about all the pieces being pure glossy white, you're going to be sorely disappointed. There are some pieces that are just made in different molds and made with different materials, and you will have pieces that are more rubbery and duller. You will have glossy, pure ivory colored pieces, and they will be right next to dull, matte, more just eggshell pieces. And then there will, if you aren't specifically too observant on different shades of colors, you'll still have some that are clearly brown pieces and clearly gray pieces. There is definitely a class of pieces that they just don't make in white, which kind of makes the whole thing stand out. You have to take it basically with a grain of salt and say, well, any kind of Lego build is going to still somewhat look like it's made out of Lego. And frankly, that's fine, because it would be fairly annoying if you had a giant Lego build that was built out of incredibly small pieces, so it didn't even look like Lego at the end of the day. But yeah, I desperately need to take some time and organize the boxes and manuals a little bit more, and I have a whole shelf that I bought around Christmas and I haven't gotten around to putting it together. Well, I put one together. I bought 2 shelves, and I'm thinking of trying to find really cheap tables of some sort, perhaps dresser, half-height dressers that I could match together and screw together to make giant tables. Buying potentially 6 of them and putting them all together. I have the room I put all the Legos in is particularly long, so that would actually work in 2 rows of 3. But yeah, I'd have to get it at like IKEA bottom rate prices, and it almost certainly wouldn't be good quality things. The other idea would be just to build a custom table, and I just don't have the time, energy, or skill to do that. But yeah, and obviously, since I'm talking about Lego right now instead of talking about video games, obviously I need to hurry up and finish the Telltale games for second Halloween, and then I need to think about whether I'm gonna play a 3rd horror game of any sort, and if I am, get that done, and then I can get back on track of just playing whatever I want to play. And it does feel like as I get older, and as I am hitting yet another anniversary every year, another 12 months of being a YouTube video game critic, it's getting harder and harder to find new games I haven't played before that I find actually interesting and good. Like I tried not to just play all the good games and be left with hundreds of bad games, but I can only claim moderate success on that. I definitely intentionally sought out to play a lot of other games. A lot of games that I knew were going to be entertaining.
It won't be long now. Keep those eyes healed. I mean, healed.
Alright, well, let's start going through the video game news. Let's see. We have a TechRaptor article here. The Uncharted movie delayed again, this time until 2022. Okay. It's kind of ridiculous that anybody at this point would have even announced a movie or a delay with a date on it. I was actually thinking about how it's been probably many years since I last watched a movie. I think the last movie I saw in the theater was the Blade Runner sequel, Blade Runner 2029, when that came out. Yeah, I think that was the last movie. And even then, I didn't particularly enjoy the experience of going to a theater, but it would be something that I feel like I should try every now and then.
I guess you're looking for a
In the same way that I feel like I probably should try Brussels sprouts every 5 or 6 years to remind myself whether I like them or not. I'm not sure I've actually eaten Brussels sprouts. And food-wise, well, it's about the same idea. you could have a certain type of food cooked very badly and as your first experience, and it could certainly color your perception on whether you like something or not. Moving on, TechRaptor has the Resident Evil Village release date being announced. So, at least for the demo, and we're going to have a live Resident Evil news today, because I think the demo is out. It seems like they are focusing on these women who are either kind of zombies being controlled by maybe this main super tall girl, or maybe they're witches. I kind of get the feeling that they're supposed to be a spin of being witches. One of the things, and this is going to sound weird certainly, but I think it is kind of fair to say, is so often you have a lot of hype around new female characters in games, which particularly in Japanese culture leads to a lot of artists willing to draw them in somewhat suggestive poses or completely pornographic poses. And I think you could probably make a great argument that the original artists know that's going to happen. They kind of want it to happen because that's hype, and that kind of hype you can't buy. But in this case, they've specifically not been able to do too much with this character, as so far as what I've seen. And I can definitely see a why. Like, these all look like Joker-faced characters that they're showing just minimal amount of cleavage. They've got long dresses. Their hands and arms are covered. They're just totally covered in fabric. It's not particularly like a near automata outfit where a lot of skin is showing, or it's basically lingerie. Like, this girl mostly just shows cleavage. This dress is not that particularly interesting. If anything, it looks like it might be made from a curtain or a sheet. So yeah, if they don't want their characters looted, I think they've succeeded fairly well there. And then of course we're going to see very little lewd images of something like the Tyrant. I suppose there is also a certain level of there not being too much enthusiasm, recently at least, to depict any of the Resident Evil characters. Particularly after 4, they mostly only introduced characters that were like Sheva, which not too many people I think were particularly interested in, and or they were just completely unlikable characters in Resident Evil 6. So I don't think anybody new in that game that got too much of that. That being said, there was most definitely a collection, to say the least, of mods in the Resident Evil 2 remake to put the main character, the main female character, is that Jill Valentine? I'm not sure if that's who I'm thinking of. There definitely were like full nude mods for that, and that was just straight into the game, so there might be a slight reaction to that too. This line of reasoning falls apart somewhat, or at least it opens up some interesting arguments when you think about how much the new female characters in the new Pokemon games, though, got lewd images drawn about them. Although I think there's also an interesting retrospective uh, idea you can think about for that too, in the fact that Pokemon Shield and Sword, the Pokemon Shield character, was supposed to be this Irish character that everybody at first, before the game was released, seemed to really like, but as the disappointment set in with Pokemon Shield and Sword for other reasons, that character got mostly forgotten, and it was just the gym leader character in the black jacket, or the bad guy team leader girl in the black jacket, that seemed to have most of the leads drawn up for. And then there was a gym leader character with the tan skin that had some controversy around her and had some lewds drawn around her. Of course, that's definitely a weird perspective to go from for Resident Evil games, but it's something I'll keep an eye out for, certainly. There is something from what you're seeing here where it definitely feels like these characters are going to be mostly human and mostly just really powerful to fight for most of the game, and then maybe like Resident Evil 7 they will turn into monsters at the final battle with them and transform. That seems to be the direction that they're going, which potentially introduces the idea that there could be a Resident Evil story that takes place where there literally is just not really any monsters at all.
Verifying access.
Hey, that was my face.
See.
Time to say goodbye.
Glad I on for bash.
But I walked the edge.
You'll want to be fairly careful. Sorry, I'm still talking about Resident Evil. You want to be fairly careful though in what they're showing you here, because if it's all about these characters, then there may not be that interesting of levels or areas. This showcase went on for an hour. No, it didn't really go on for an hour. It waited 20 minutes before it started showing you anything. So it's now being run out of a Resident Evil engine. That's slightly more interesting. Yeah, this could be just a return to a creepy house with kind of not a lot going on. As far as what you're really gonna do here. Yeah, it seems like you might very well just be stuck in a creepy house throughout the old game. And then they've got this reverse, which is I think, side game of multiplayer, which they're trying to do something like the multiplayer they had before, but now they're putting in regular characters from the previous games, characters you much more recognize. And seemingly what they've done is shrunk down their models to convert them running around familiar locations, but having the ability to actually run around with multiple players on the same screen, whereas the original instance of that would not have been possible because the characters would have been so big. Right. Okay, so we can attack like that. They are constantly trying to, I think, make multiplayer happen as far as Resident Evil goes. And I always feel like the Resident Evil series is just on the verge of pooping out another bad Resident Evil game. You kind of feel like they are just going to eventually make the same mistake again. I don't know what you can really do about that. Once that faith has been shaken, and once it's been proven that they've done that with like Resident Evil 6, and even the Resident Evil 3 remake wasn't particularly that great, but if that is the new low, that would be fine. Although new games probably should be better than remakes of bad games.
Time for me to prove myself.
It would be weird if we played Resident Evil Village and it found that the engine was lacking, or that it was somehow not as polished for the time that it's going to come out in. Also wouldn't be surprised if there is a decent amount of delay in it, just because. Well, we'll stop talking about Resident Evil for a while, and we'll talk instead about this. According to one of the writers that worked on Mass Effect 2, Jack, which is, I guess, this female character, the way she's depicted normally is much closer to this. Like, just covered in tattoos, and she was a wild out there character, visually speaking. I didn't play Mass Effect 2, so I don't know how much of a interaction she was. She was supposed to be like psychic and basically enslaved, and these were supposed to be like slave cars, and this is like a slave Leia type concept. But apparently she was supposed to be pansexual and have both gay and straight romances. And according to this, the first game was criticized by Fox News, and thus it was cut. I don't believe this for 1 second, frankly. I don't think even at that point anybody who would have been in charge of making Mass Effect 2 cared what Fox News had to say or what criticism Fox News was going to make. It was a mature rated game, and it just smacks of a case where I think they either didn't want to spend the budget on writing more romantic paths with one character, or it made somebody in charge, some CEO, unhappy or uninterested in having gay relationships, which kind of does not make sense either, because you still had this character in the clothing, the ridiculously tiny clothing. So I think it was an easy excuse to not put more work into Mass Effect 2, and in all fairness, it's not like you can make an argument that Mass Effect 2 was sorely lacking in content. They did particularly fine in the content area, from what I recall, as far as Mass Effect 2. So it seems to me like this is some writer who probably does not work for BioWare anymore, and they're trying to get their 5 minutes of fame and trying to appear more woke nowadays. And frankly, a writer being upset that their content is cut is not really news that's worth reporting on. Almost every writer probably gets a decent amount of their ideas and content cut. It's not unheard of by any means. Well, let's hit that, and then that,
I'm gonna rest for a bit.
and then and that,
Let's play.
and then evolve that.
You're done for. So sparkly. Yeah.
Hit that. Hit that one.
Let's play.
And then hit that one.
Time to dance.
Hmm. There probably is some small weirdness with Mass Effect in general, and I think the same is true for Dragon Age in general. In the idea that they let you choose your gender, so you could have been a femshep or a male shep, a male shepherd, female shepherd in the Mass Effect series, which would have definitely eliminated some scenes. Some romantic possibilities. I think nowadays you probably would see them not go down that route and instead intentionally focus more on just having the romantic parties be open to everybody, where everybody would just be pansexual. And in the Mass Effect universe, pansexual probably means a lot more than normal, because there was all kinds of species and aliens, and I think at least one of them was a plant, and at least one species was like didn't have a gender. So it was already going in quite a few different directions like that. Well, I have lost. Wow, this guy managed to wreck me. Yeah, we have a game on Steam called Fart Party, which, yeah, this looks like it's a Jumpy Doodle type clone. $2.99 English only.
Oh, whoa. You're strong.
With nothing suspending, there is this thought, certainly, that that I won't run into any thumbnails that won't load, which that should potentially make a more interesting or smoother experience today. Yeah, and that very well may prove that I was just causing my own problems. Here we have a game on Steam called Warriors of Titus, which is a VR first-person shooter. Visually, it looks polished enough, but not enough that I'd want to play it. Free to play, single player, online player versus player, but seems to require VR, which, making a MOBA that requires VR sounds like a big mistake to me. Here we have a game on Steam called Languish, which looks like it's a horror game with some actual photos of real people. First person indie horror game, $2.99 English, allegedly full audio. Do not play. Use the headphones. Skip through all this video and see if we can try and figure out whether there's a real game here or whether this is just an asset flip dark screenshot game. I don't know. I'm gonna have to put this one on the fall list. That looks like that might actually be a game, but I also wouldn't be surprised if it's like 20 minutes of an experience. Next, we have a game on Steam called Dreamscapes Dimensions, which looks like it's an asset flip game. Looks terrible. Early access, free to play, English only, MMO with a third party EULA. At this rate, I might actually get all the news done today and still not have all the daily quests. I did try to play a little bit off screen to get the daily quests and the packs done. Did not have a lot of success with that because my network was definitely causing trouble. And if anything, I may, in this instance, finally gone too far in the other direction, because normally when I'm having network trouble, I will just mess with my router and try and fix it myself as much as I can, and sometimes you can't fix it because it's not inside your own network. It's the internet service provider's fault. Often it's the internet service provider's fault, and I had kind of tried to learn that lesson and not harass myself or waste my time. So I took a break as soon as I saw the internet had been confirmed to be down by my ISP, and started doing the Lego. So it is possible that there might have been some time-saving mechanic I could have done to fix the problems that I did fix. And if that was the case, I may have had a better chance of potentially winning it playing this game off screen. But I didn't, and there's an old saying, if and buts were candy and nuts, oh what a time we would have, which basically means regrets are not useful.
I did it! I won!
Alright, that's one victory. Stick with the winning thing. Moving on, we have a game on Steam called Survival Classic. That's a very generic name, and it does just kind of look like an asset flip game, although maybe visually polished more than most. 12.29, bunch of languages. Nothing there. It's an online player versus player game. Here we have a game called Tinker Toy Simulator Prologue, which is a demo for what looks like an asset flip game. It's free, English and Turkish. We're starting to see higher numbers of Turkish games being released, which, okay, that's different. Here we have a game called Deathbox. Probably need to hurry, otherwise I'm going to start getting sleepy. This looks terrible. 269 English full audio. Yeah, that looked like it was not really a game. Here we have a game called Andromeda Rebirth of Humanity. I kind of would like to see a video game based off the Gene Roddenberry unfinished Andromeda script. They tried to make a TV series with it, and it went nowhere, basically. This is English MMO. I'm not interested in it. It doesn't look particularly visually polished enough for a space game. I think the standards are fairly high in that kind of game. But honestly, I guess if you're going to make a video game based on a TV sci-fi series, you have way better choices than Gene Roddenberry's Andromeda. You could A, go with the big boys and try to make another Star Wars or Star Trek game, or you could B, go for like a Babylon 5 story. You could go with what is it? The very much beloved one, Serenity TV series. Yeah. The movie was called Serenity. I forget the name of the TV series. A video game series around that would actually be very, very smart. You could go for some of the older sci-fi series too, which you could make like a Lost in Space video game fairly easily. Netflix has the rights to the new Lost in Space, and there's still one more season for that. So, yep. Now, honestly, if you're going to just go through all the TV series that exist and expand it from just sci-fi space games, that there's a decent number of games out there that you could make based on TV series if you get a generous license on it. But even if you get a free license on a TV series, the later sales might be an issue, where things might run into copyright renegotiations after 4 or 5 years of trying to sell something, and it might be better to have a game that is an original piece of content that's inspired by something like Star Trek and Star Wars, like Mass Effect, than it is to actually try and get the license to Star Trek and Star Wars. I'm a little surprised some game companies haven't straight up tried to remove the licenses from some games and then re-release it. I feel like you could probably pull that off on some of the Star Wars games. It's just reskin the game and remove the references to Star Wars once the contract is done. Moving on, here we have a game called Adverse, which looks like it's a parkour archery game. Oddly would be in the category of what I would call an asset flip parkour game because they've gotten so good, but I don't think at this point I can just dismiss a game that looks like this. You're running, you're jumping, you're parkouring, and then you're also shooting arrows, which honestly Mirror's Edge might have been better off suited that way if you were shooting arrows at cameras. This is 539 English full audio, 28 achievements. I'm gonna put this on the follow list and we'll see what happens. Let's see.
It won't be long now. This is the only way out of strange.
That.
I'm out of cash.
Next we have a game on Steam called Smash Room, which looks like it's a platforming game that is nicely visuals, but seems to not have any enemies or anything. So it seems like you are just platforming and not really fighting anything, which kind of makes the whole thing seem a little too generic. There seems to be some insects that hurt you, and that might be it. $6.99 English Italian. That's a combination we don't see that often either. Unfortunately, yeah, it's just not missing that extra element of either collectibles or enemies that I would want to see. Next we have a game on Steam called Phono, which looks like it's a dark screenshot, maybe physics platformer. Maybe it has something to do with music. $2.99 English only. It seems like you release particles and the particles affect what you can land on and what you can't land on. Okay.
The stars pale beside me.
This bears further study.
Alright, well that
Ends
didn't
here.
quite do enough damage.
My beauty will so vile you are.
So this is my fate after all.
Here we have a game on Steam called Closer Anagenorisis. I don't know how you pronounce that. You seem to be playing as these either a collection of white characters, just all white characters,
Bears further study.
or one white character, and then there's a little bit of color, but like a white character on white Snow makes very little sense. You have to be extremely careful on that. But that's the way you would depict a character like that. She needs probably some kind of thick black outline to have her stand out, and they seem to intentionally not want to have the characters stand out. This is $3.59, bunch of languages. Yeah, I don't think I'd want to play anything like this. It seems a little too surreal, a little too abstract, and not willing to cut me a break as far as the visuals and finding where a character is and being able to lock my eyes on that character. Next, we have a game on Steam called Raging Blasters, which looks like a widescreen shoot 'em up. It still looks like an NES game. $12.74, bunch of languages, nothing there that interests me.
A glimpse into the future is only the beginning.
It's so easy to jump between article and article here. There's no delay when you're not loading it up. Here we have a game called Agent Murphy, which is a way too zoomed out platforming game. It's $1.19, English, allegedly full audio. Alright.
So this is my fate after all.
Yeah, I'm starting to yawn. Next, we have a game called Girls Pinball, which is not pinball at all. It's Arkanoid clone with some anime girls behind it. Early access, $2.69, bunch of languages, nothing there. Although, I guess it has been maybe a week since the last time we saw a real adult game released, and it is Friday, so I wouldn't be surprised if we see a adult game, an anime, particularly adult game, getting released today. We've also seen what feels like a cutback as far as the lewd games or games that imply there's nudity in them, even if they really don't have that. Which maybe we are starting to see the beginnings of some actual curation on the behalf of Valve and Steam. Speaking of Valve, I mentioned in the last stream that Tyler McVickerson, the guy who ran Valve News Network, there was nobody else ever involved with it, has decided to stop labeling his YouTube channel as Valve News Network, and he did it in a very clickbaity way and said the end of Valve News Network, as if he's saying he's not going to cover Valve News. What he's really saying, after I watched the video and then just look at the clickbait title, is he's merging his other ventures, which was I think also Blizzard information and Nintendo information, together, and he's branding it under his own name, Tyler McVickerson, and he's probably pulling back a little bit as far as desperately trying to find something new to say about Valve at least once every couple weeks, because there's actually very little to say very often around Valve. And that was fairly obvious. You'd see a lot of his videos were made up of almost complete speculation, and he did a decent job of highlighting when he was speculating, but it still was mostly speculation, and even when he did have something to say, it really wasn't that much. Anyways, here we have a game on Steam called Utaware Rumono, Prelude to the Fallen. This is a whole series of games that is a kind of character placement, turn-based tactics RPG. It's also tagged as being visual novel-esque, but if you actually look at these screenshots, it seems like there's at best only 50% of the game being focused on the visual novel elements, and 50% of the game actually being a game. $47.99, unless you want to buy the complete bundle, which is $95.45, or if you want to just get Prelude to the Fallen, Mask of Deception, and Mask of Truth, then that's $79. It's Japanese full audio. It might be interesting to kind of figure out where we are as far as the Uturamono series. This is very positive, and it's on my wish list. And yeah, looks like it's the same game. And this is very positive, and it's on my wish list. And looks like it's pretty much the same game. There's a decent argument to be made that I should have potentially played a game like Uturamono, Reiru Mono, because to get into visual novels, because that would have probably been a little bit more interesting. Although I also have to be careful here, because this is also the Disgaea style of game that was just really slow. So I would probably want to do some research and buy just one of these games and play it and see if I can even make it through. See, this one's tagged RPG Adventure instead of potentially accidentally buying like 3 or 4 of that game, or all 3 of the games in the series, and then realizing I just don't have the attention span to actually play a game like that.
Make the world color yourself. This is dumb. You're dumb.
Next, we have a game on Steam called Tiny Lands, which looks like it is a 3D VR game, or no, it's a Spot the Difference game, so it's not 3D. Visually it looks nice, but then I question, when you have this high level of depictions, how many levels are there actually in the game? $6.29. See if we can figure out how many levels there are. No.
It won't be long now.
It doesn't say, so this is the kind of game that needs to go on the fall list just to see if people play it or like it. Apparently, they're doing some kind of special advertisement sale on Steam, January 21st to the 25th, which I guess is today. Sponsored by HitSense, a company I have not even heard of. So let's see. Is there a, like, I think this is on my wish list, or I chose not to have it on my wish list for some reason. And a lot of these games are coming soon. Some of these don't look like they're really on sale.
These weapons are for hunting dragons.
I always go with the flow.
It won't be long now.
Let's keep on playing.
Shutting down.
Yeah, I'm not sure I'm seeing a major sale here. I'm seeing some very weird different games that are being promoted, but I don't know if there's a real savings to be had. And in all honesty, you probably don't need, 25% off, 35% off, those don't feel like big discounts. You probably don't even need to care one bit about any game that any sales, except for the Christmas sale, the fall sale, the Black Friday sale, and the summer sale, of course. And even in that case, most of the Steam sales these days are still fairly unimpressive. 3 damage.
Get back here.
I'm going to lose. And if we actually go to Steam's storefront, they're not even really advertising that sale.
Another takes its place.
Here we have Binding of Isaac Repentance, Resident Evil 7, Resident Evil Village, and 7 being bundled as a pre-purchase for $80, which that seems a little weird. Skull, I think, was a game that I was interested in, so I want to make sure that's on the follow list. Oh, we do have the danger here where, yeah, the deluxe edition here is 71%, $71.52, 2% off. There's a danger certainly that this game is not going to be anywhere worth that price. And look at like Control Ultimate Edition now for $40. Or here you have Resident Evil 3 for $20. I haven't played that game. I haven't played Resident Evil 2 remake, so there are cheaper options to play Resident Evil games at the moment for me.
Come, my sworn brothers, rise to greater heights.
Okay,
Higher than the beautiful.
Oh, that didn't go
that
so
kills
well.
that.
It's time to conquer a new domain.
There we go. Yeah, there's a danger certainly of me scrolling on the front page also, because any adult game could show up on the front page. I probably should toggle that. Let's see. They have 60% off Code Vein. There's a publisher deal for 60% off. Up to 87% off Resident Evil games. I bet the 87% off is Resident Evil games I already have. It's 67% for RE3, Resident Evil 7, and RE2 remakes. Where like Resident Evil remake is 75% off for $10. The Resident Evil Deluxe Origins bundle 75% off. Yeah, as soon as I get past the 2 promoted lines of advertisement, I am immediately seeing a low effort, probably lewd game. Okay. Deal 3 to an enemy. And do this and that.
Shutting down. Beautiful.
Then we can do that.
Stand tall.
We can do that.
Behold the fists of immortal supremacy.
You're a
Yeah,
solid
I
fight.
don't know if there's really... How did I lose there? That sucks. I don't know what just happened there. Yeah, I don't know if there's really a good reason to look on the front page, even if I'm just satisfying my curiosity. It doesn't seem like too much gets highlighted on the front page that I haven't already seen. I want to basically scroll down here and see the first adult game that actually is on the front page. I wonder if maybe that was an experiment they did during the sale. Time
for me to prove myself.
Bear the past, but seize the future.
Yeah, I'm scrolling down fairly far. I still have yet to see an adult product. Maybe there's just not one that's selling particularly well at the moment. It could be the case, but that seems unlikely. That might be an indication of something, certainly. Paradise Killer. I had to scroll down quite far to see Paradise Killer, which is a Western visual novel game with some adult-looking images. That was not really what I was expecting, though. And you could almost make the same argument for something like Bloodstained Rituals of Night, but not really. Still haven't gotten Hand of Fate 2. There is a growing list of Nico Para Volume 4, I guess. That is tagged as having sexual content as a visual novel. And then right below that is Futafix, which, and right below that is Crush Crush. So you had to go fairly low to see it, so they might be de-emphasizing or lowering in their metric when you see those games. But yeah, 3 adult games that seem to not be showing any absolute pornography or nudity on the front page, just implying it. Although Futafix is called Futafix Dick Dine and Dash, so I think you fairly could quickly figure out what was going on there. There was a fairly gross sexual joke basically written into the story of the final season of The Walking Dead, which is weird because there's basically been no romance or no sex at all in any of the Walking Dead games, even when you were playing as Michonne or as an adult, or the idea of Lee maybe making out with somebody before he died. And in the final season, they've let you very creepily decide Clementine is a lesbian and kiss twice. You're prompted where you can kiss a character and basically turn her into your girlfriend, which I chose to do because I was manipulating her, the other girl, to gain power, basically sleeping my way to the top. And had it been a male in the powerful position, I would have done the exact same. But yeah, it just doesn't make sense in the Walking Dead universe. At least the way Telltale had set up that whole universe. Maybe there would have been more to that. Like, maybe the Walking Dead universe would have been more interesting if that had been more a consistent thing. But pretty much in a zombie apocalypse, as far as I was concerned, everybody lost any gender they once would have had and became simple asexual survivors of a zombie apocalypse, in my mind. Well, moving on, we've got this game Skull the Hero Slayer. I opened this up. We've already looked at it, but it's not early access. It's rated very positively. There's no reason to not just immediately promote it to the wish list. It does look like a hack and slash platforming game that interests me enough that I want to play it. Let's see, this Resident Evil Deluxe Origins bundle for $10 includes the original Resident Evil and Resident Evil 0 remakes, I think. I don't think these are the original game. And then it includes costume packs, which they shouldn't be charging anything for. But yeah, $10 is not terrible. But you're not really getting a big discount there either. Take note that the only thing I have on my wish list right now is the actual games, like the costumes. Might be interesting, but not really. This does go to show that at one point the Resident Evil series was more than happy to give you characters in lewd costumes and silly costumes, and that has been a consistent theme around the Resident Evil series. So I wouldn't for a second be surprised if that once again becomes a focus. Although they're trying to be way more serious about it nowadays and not going in the wild directions.
Forever and ever more.
There was this.
The work is never a waste of time.
Ow!
There's this link I saw here to Games Industry Africa, which that might be an interesting place to follow for news, but I'm not sure that I trust this site to be a good source of news. Nor does it seem like they have really anything interesting to say on their front page. His like first game they even talked about is from December 14th. The thing is, Africa is a collection of very, very different countries that vary widely in whether or not they're first world, second world, or third world countries, for lack of a better description. And as far as video game development, I have not seen but maybe 2 games that were actually made by African companies, or even all African teams, or mostly African teams, or designed to even be culturally African. And I just kind of don't feel like there is a video games industry in Africa at the moment. Not enough that really would need its own website. Like, it's a shame, certainly. There is also, I think, probably a fair thing to keep an eye out for. Maybe not make a direct accusation, but it's fairly well known that since the most developers of video games are Western United States people and Eastern Asian people, Japanese mostly, and European or American, all of those countries do tend to have a decent level of racial bias, to put it nicely. And so I wouldn't be surprised if an African developed game would just feel very off-putting to those first markets, or it would just get undue harsh criticism. Yeah. I've heard from several people that like racism amongst African people in Asia is very blatant and obvious, but almost coming from a point of ignorance that they've just never even seen an African before, and so they're in awe, whereas racism tends to generally have darker roots in the United States and sometimes in Europe. And in all fairness, there probably are many parts of Africa where a Caucasian person is not going to be treated particularly nicely either.
Hey, let's play. Help me, fairy.
Moving on, Gamatsu has an article here. SNK versus Capcom, the match of the millennium, has been rated for Switch in Korea. Which, okay. Sounds like a fighting game, maybe. Let's see. It's likely the next Neo Geo Pocket Color Selection title, which must be like a re-release of an old Neo Geo game on the Switch. That's the only thing that would make sense to me. Maybe do this. And then I guess we have to do that.
Help me, fairy.
That. And that. Next we have a game on Steam called Robo Boggled, which looks like it's a block pushing laser game. $1.49 English only. Next, well, this one's tagged nudity. Let me just double check these screenshots. Make sure they're YouTube family friendly. Yeah, they seem fine. There's some pencil sketches that show up in some of the screenshots of a character in kind of lingerie, but that seems to be it. I'm gonna evolve this. And check here, here, and here. So we have this game called The Detective Chapters Part 1, and here's the pencil sketches. It, to me, looks like it's probably an asset flip kind of puzzle game. At a certain point it also might just be, this is what a point and click adventure in 3D would look like. Let's see, it's $8.54, English full audio, third party. I don't see how a game like that can justify that price, because they're saying it's part 1 for $10 basically. If we look at the other games they've made, they have one that's mixed reviewed with 21 reviews from 2015, and then they have one that has basically no reviews. So I don't have enough faith in Mayhem Games as a publisher. It's not really video game related, but the Raspberry Pi has released a Raspberry Pi Pico, which is not a system on the chip computer. Instead, it is a really small microcontroller chip, is I guess what you would call it. Yeah, which means it's not going to run Linux. It's going to use either C or MicroPython. Probably eventually would get support for CircuitPython too, because that seems fairly similar. But you're doing C, not C++ or C#. It does, I think, have some FPGAs in it, which is going to allow it to do some other amazing things, but to like immediately directly run a VGA output. And they've already been able to get it to emulate very old like computers, first generation gaming computer type things, but that's about as far as it's going to go. It's odd because it is much closer to an Arduino than a Raspberry Pi. That being said, it isn't a terrible thought because it's only £4, which is about $8 in US dollars. So they've got the price down, with Raspberry Pi also being fairly respected and well known as a developer of maker products, which the fear of buying an Arduino is certainly the possibility that that the manufacturer of that Arduino might stop making it, or something like that, or it'd just be hard to be supported. Here we can see they've already programmed it to do some RGB out with some assistive boards. They did a lot of testing in general, I think, before it all happened, before they released it. One thing I think that you might take from something like this is they may release a new Raspberry Pi 5 that has a chip like this as supplemental to a system on the chip CPU. So that a chip like this would be something that could run in extremely low power mode and control all the pins and general purpose input output connections, which at a certain level it also maybe is an offering to say, hey, you don't probably need the GPIO pins on a Raspberry Pi. Most people don't ever use them, or if they are using them, they're simply plugging in official peripherals that are being made by Raspberry Pi themselves, the power over Ethernet hat, or a screen or something that could probably very easily not use so many pins and just needs a power connection. So they could potentially split the use base, or this could be just a Raspberry Pi testing something out, and they may decide they like it, they may decide they don't, or they may have just hit a ceiling as far as making a Raspberry Pi 5. I also wouldn't be surprised if they're kind of secretly licensing things, chips and boards, designs from other people and putting the Raspberry Pi label on it. It would be probably not the best thing in the world if every single maker project first and foremost had a Raspberry Pi branded device that you could use with it, instead of having to try other chips and other boards. But on the other hand, there are definitely a lot of boards out there that just don't have a good level of support, and trying to program on them and do anything on them is just a level of insanity that most people would not be willing to embrace. Microcontrollers are best suited for doing one thing and one thing very fast and very well with very little power draw. They're not suited to be a multitasking computer. So there are definitely different kinds of projects there. It probably is most important to point out that the Raspberry Pi Pico has no Wi-Fi modem, no Bluetooth modem, no camera input, no display output by default. You have to program everything if you were going to use it for that factor. It does seem to have a decent amount of RAM, but the way the RAM is broken up and split might not work for some uses and might work well for others. So you kind of have to dive deep into how that works. Moving on, we have desktop Nico Girl, Nico being Japanese for cat. So desktop cat girl, which if Valve was kind of curating and not releasing anime games or low effort anime games. So this one would definitely be an exception, because this definitely could be a type of game that is curated. It's $4.79 English and Chinese. The thing that maybe you could say is, if Valve is curating any games, they might be curating the adult games. And so when you have a Chinese ripoff of what looks like a Japanese game, the Chinese version very well may not have any adult content, because they're self-censoring themselves because they don't want to get in trouble with the Chinese government.
These weapons are for hunting dragons.
Moving on, we have a Gemetsu article. Rakugaki Kingdom launches January 28th in Japan. Draw and train your own characters. It's an interesting idea, drawing your own characters. See if this trailer can explain it better. How much of the drawing is tracing and how much of the drawing is real? Like this, it doesn't really feel like drawing as much as 3D modeling your characters and skinning them and painting them. Oh, I guess they give you a bit of a shadow and a shadow of the character, and then you can draw them. Not sure you'd want something like that, but it's an interesting idea for a Pokemon ripoff. That's obviously what it is. This might be another instance where the Japanese are just so much more practiced on drawing that they may, on average, be better at drawing than the average Westerner. A game like that might highlight that issue. Next, we have a game that's all Asian characters, which is tagged as a puzzle interactive fiction. I'm suspecting this is a Chinese horror asset flip game. $3.39, Chinese full audio. Go ahead and play. I wonder how much of Shadowverse really, my failure with Shadowverse is the fact that I feel like I need to play every turn, where it might just be smarter in many instances to not play and just save your cards. Do I want to do anything?
Get back here.
We've talked a lot about this game, but Gemetsu has the launch trailer for March in Forest, Mylene and the Forest Gift. So, if you want to watch the launch trailer for this game, which might not hurt too bad because I'm not sure I 100% remember which game this is. There's enough of them that look around. Sometimes I wonder about Japanese games if they are being designed just to sell the collectibles and memorabilia, but I wouldn't be surprised if that is exactly the same scenario for some Western games also. That they're just designed to sell merchandise.
Get back here.
Gematsu has an article. All Nippon Airways and JP Games announce a virtual travel project. Hajime Tabata, is that a real name? I thought that was a made-up name. On board as general producer. I guess that is a real name. He directed Final Fantasy 15 and Final Fantasy Type 0 during his time at Square Enix. A virtual travel project will allow users to travel to cities created with computer graphics in a virtual space. Alright. It'll be interesting to see if this actually got translated and released to the West. There definitely are, from what I've seen of other travel shows, some fairly beautiful places to to see and visit in Japan if you're lucky enough to do that, although at this point I don't know how many people could actually accomplish that. Right, what do we want to do? Leader strike won't work. 2 damage won't work. Okay. So let's do this first.
Good morning to you. Verifying access.
And then if I did this.
Be gone. Emergency mode activated.
And then did this. Actually, I didn't need to power that guy up.
Enemy identified.
I could have powered up this guy and done 1 more damage.
Get back here.
Next, we have a game on Steam called Milkcraft, which clearly is trying to create mind confusion, name confusion around Minecraft, and definitely looks like it's just a Minecraft clone. It's free MMO with in-app purchases, English full on you. Yeah, that's definitely something where I think Valve should step in and say, no, we're not going to let you try and trick people to think that we have Minecraft. Although Steam doesn't have Minecraft, so maybe Valve wouldn't care. Speaking of Valve, Gabe Newell apparently said they do have games that they're working on and planning on eventually announcing, which I don't think is really any different from what he said in the past, is that they are definitely working that they're definitely working towards having new games eventually come out, where for nearly 10 years they kind of failed miserably to have any new games come out.
Get back here.
But I think the idea of Half-Life Alyx coming out really broke them from that mold, and now they just need to be careful to not fall back into old habits. Right. +2/+2. Storm. Put that on the field. Put that on the field.
Enemy identified. Get back here.
Next, we have a game on Steam called Space of Retaliation, which looks like it's probably trying to be Among Us, with just asset flips, if I was to guess. Either that or it's something else that I don't care about. $5.09. English full audio. Well, I think my concept of anything being censored is going to be mostly thrown out the window with this game, because here we have Poker Pretty Girls Battle, Fantasy World Edition. This is from Zoo Corporation. We've seen some of their games where they had Pretty Girls Mahjong. So now they're playing, seems like 5-card draw, or Texas Hold'em. What is it? Yeah, probably Texas Hold'em. It says tagged with sexual content, but if it's like any of the other Zoo games, you're probably not going to see too much. And honestly, as a poker game, it doesn't look particularly that interesting either. It's $4.24, Japanese full audio, English and Chinese. I think at this point I don't think I'd want to play this. It does say here there's no undressing and nudity in the game. It's a poker game. Yeah, they very specifically, Zoo Corporation makes their games to not be actual adult content.
The curtain rises for a new era.
Interesting.
won't be long
Have to
now.
hurry here, or I'm gonna lose.
Time is of the queen. Welcome the end.
1,
Enemy identified.
2,
Get shot down.
3.
No, the blueprints!
Order takes flight for a peaceful tomorrow.
So 13 rush has him draw 13 cards at the end of the turn. So he's got 14 cards left. So do we play that with a ward? Well, we can play that. And let's go with that.
Justice was carried out.
Then what do we want to do? Rush. Two, 4, 6. Do this. Do this. My battery power on my cell phone's about to die. So it's vibrating at me. Moving on, we have a game on Steam called Desktop MMD Miss Fish, which seems weird to have 2 of these. Virtual desktop girls. Mixed rated, $3.99. Japanese full audio. Probably the exact same developer who brought out both of them. Okay, what else can we do? We've got let's see if we hit this. I think we're fairly safe.
You're a solid fighter.
Nope, I had lost. I could have won there if I'd gotten a little bit luckier. Let's see. YouTube Gaming tweeted out that apparently Reggie Fils-Aimé, is that who this is? Yeah. And Harold Goldberg, who is a Washington Post person I haven't heard of, that they're going to be giving out a Legend Award winner to Hideo Kojima, which honestly at a certain point I think he's getting more awards than he really deserves, and maybe they should be a little bit more withholding on the praises for him, because he's only made Death Stranding since leaving Konami, and praising him for like old developments of Silent Hill is perhaps less than productive nowadays. Silent Hill in particular is in this horrible place where they've lost the code to it, and Konami would never bother to release a remaster or remake anyways. So at a certain point it's turning into rabid fandom for Hideo Kojima's products when it really shouldn't be. Let's see, moving on. OpenCritic has an article. Borderlands 3 Arms Races will be hosting a number of mini games, which, okay, they're trying different things to keep people playing Borderlands 3. Sony released a press release that this person, Tsuyoshi Kodera, is the Executive Vice President, Officer in charge of Digital Transformation Strategy, Information Systems, and information security. He currently, or previously, would have been the deputy president of Sony Interactive Entertainment and representative director and deputy president of Sony Interactive Entertainment. So what this is basically telling you is that we have yet another Japanese person who is being moved into a different position away from Sony Interactive Entertainment, which is the PlayStation division, which has been all but ceded in most people's opinions to the California office, and that Sony of Japan doesn't care. At least that's how I'm taking that announcement. I could be completely wrong about that, but we certainly are seeing instances of people moving around in Sony more than normal, or at least it's getting reported more than normal. Particularly when you think about how everybody in Japan is basically on lockdown, so how people are getting promoted or demoted or moving around or quitting jobs. It's kind of crazy. The new U.S. president signed into executive order more protections that specifically addresses people refusing to take jobs because they're afraid of getting infected with COVID, which apparently has been an issue. Certainly, I imagine a lot of the unemployment offices run by the state, by individual states in the United States, have been using that as a go-to excuse to potentially deny applicants of unemployment, which in my experience it seems fairly common for very bad jobs to bad places to work to offer very low paying jobs to people on unemployment, because then that gets them, if they don't take their terrible offer and maybe do some self-educating or just take their time to actually browse, they'll then try and knock them off of the list of people who are qualified for unemployment. And why would they do that? One, because they're just nasty people, and two, because in general every company pays into unemployment insurance, so knocking anyone at all randomly off of unemployment rosters helps every company save a buck at the expense of potentially somebody becoming even more destitute. There are actual rules, though, like there's limitations on how much of a pay cut you have to actually consider. But it does also create a system where a lot of people are not heavily motivated in the first place to apply for a job, actually to take a job, because they are either just not interested in working, and that's the real thing that people don't want to admit, is that there is just a percentage of people that just don't want to work anywhere, and that isn't really a bad thing or an unnatural thing, but then there are also a lot of people that just apply to the same places they know that they'll never get accepted for, or they'll get interviews and not show up at the interviews. Like all of that garbage, certainly, and all the red tape could easily be eliminated with just a universal basic income, and just make everybody happier instead of making people jump through hoops or act in dishonest ways just to preserve their own sanity or their own preferences. Moving on, we have a Gamatsu article again with Resident Evil Village. It launches May 7th. And they've added the PS4 and Xbox One versions. A PlayStation 5 visual demo is now available. Yeah. I don't know if there's anything else to really say here. There's like combat video here where, yep, what I'm not seeing here is any kind of heads up display, which looks fine to me. Like, part of the problem with Resident Evil 6 is that you had a whole bunch of Resident Evil stuff. A whole bunch of heads up display while playing the game. Yeah, it seems like you just have basic weapons, nothing super special. These combat videos are like 5 seconds long, so I'm just gonna basically describe them. You put your hands up like in Resident Evil 7 if they're attacking you. You can kick them away. There seems to be a big fat guy here, so this may be your shopkeeper. Seems like you can upgrade guns, but you may not have an actual inventory per se.
Hey, let's play. Yeah. Stay away.
Nope, it is a briefcase again, which this is the way people liked it way more than anything. Although this is weird because this has a knife, which you would assume a knife would just be 2 bricks, but it's making an L shape, which that seems unrealistic. So yeah, oh, that was just a screenshot issue. The knife is only 2 bricks. Okay, well, a lot of Resident Evil 4 references looking games, and that's the direction I thought that they were gonna go, and I think it's really the only direction they can go. The bigger question is, if Village takes them into something that feels like a Resident Evil 4 remake, what do they do for Resident Evil 5 and for the next game? Do they just lock down and try to go in a new direction, or do they try to remake Resident Evil 5? Some of these images are so zoomed in and blurry. Like, I wouldn't be super upset, and I don't think too many people would be upset if you had 2 or 3 games that felt like Resident Evil 4. But if you can manage a trilogy of new games that feel that way, then by that point you probably would want to change things up by the time you're at like Resident Evil 11. And I think Capcom may want to change things up faster than that. Next we have a game on Steam called Mad Games Tycoon, which seems to be just a simulator. It's early access, $22.49, English, German, Chinese, and Turkish, which that's a combination. It's a game development studio simulator.
Good to see you, my dear fairies.
Right.
You're done for. Let's welcome our friends to. You can't escape us.
This bears further study.
And that.
Time to head home.
Didn't play that well. Uematsu has the multiplayer game Resident Evil Reverse announced for the PlayStation 4, Xbox One, and PC. 4 to 6 players, deathmatch battles in iconic Resident Evil locations. Do they have a video here? Well, first we can see we have the Tyrant, we have Jill Valentine, we have Ada Wong, and two characters I don't particularly recognize, so I don't know who this is supposed to be. This might be Chris. Here you have Hunk. Let's hit the play button here. Then you got a minute of footage. So you're running around the police station and just look at how big the doors are compared to the characters. And you're just killing each other. They've just shrunk down the characters compared to the height on the walls, making them basically little chibi versions of characters. And yeah, I guess Capcom wanted in on the Battle Royale action, and I can't blame them for that, frankly. It does feel like something that they should have been able to get a piece of. There is big danger certainly there that they're going to have to constantly, if they can even get an initial audience, they're going to have to constantly add more levels and more weapons and more gameplay modes. And I'm not sure Capcom really wants to spend the effort or time on that. It really feels like they just let their interns make a multiplayer version of their games just to dip their toe in the water, and that's about it. They can only add so many characters, so they're already limited. But it wouldn't hurt them to potentially release, say, a zombie type and a new character from the Resident Evil series every time there's an update. And there's plenty of zombie types out there that they could add. I don't know how many people want to play as zombies, though. Maybe you could have a twist where you get shot, and when you get shot you turn into a zombie. That seems to be what happens if you die enough and you get turned into a tyrant. But it would almost be more interesting if you could continue playing always, but every time you die, more zombies spawn where a zombie spawns where you died. So the bigger the bloodbath happens in the Battle Royale, the more zombies appear and the harder the game gets. There might be an idea around that idea.
The forest abandoned me.
Let's see. Next on Steam we have a game called Kingdoms and Chaos, which looks like it's just a low polygonal RPG asset flip. Early access $11.99, tagged as an MMO. Here we have a game called The Epsilon Outcome, which looks like it's a hand-drawn point-and-click adventure game. Not sure there's a game here I want to play though. $6.79 English only. I'm gonna put this on the fall list. This might be really liked. Unlikely, but I'd be willing to give it a try.
A fitting end.
Let's see.
Help me, fairy. You wouldn't.
Gamma Sutra has an article here. Capcom raises a full year earnings forecast thanks to strong digital sales. Success for things like Resident Evil 3 and Monster Hunter World Iceborne, which that might be a pump and dump and just a straight up lie and stock manipulation on Capcom's part, but we shall see, I guess.
Better than in the cradle.
Here we have a game called Cat Go Ultimate Challenge, which this looks a little asset flippy, frankly, but there might be a game at some point where you could play with this cat, or the cat, You do run into a problem here where any animal without pants on, you're going to just be looking straight up their backside if you're not careful where you angle the camera angle. This is early access for $1.99. English, Chinese, Russian. This looks like a troll game to me. Let's see. What can we do here?
Why are you here?
All of this.
You're done for. You won't get away with
We
this.
do have a decent collection of cat-focused games
You wouldn't help me
on Steam. You could always have a few more, of course. Cyan Worlds put out update 33 as far as their kickstarted game. What is it called? Figment?
Fear and
Let's see.
despair are no match for
Let's
me.
speed things up.
The light of courage
Firmament
pierces
is the name of the
darkness.
game. So yeah, they're still working on it, but they clearly aren't that far as far as finishing the game. The game has been funded. It's from the creators of Myst, so, and we're hoping, or I am hoping specifically, that it will be the introduction / development of
Leave this to me.
a Myst-like game that isn't hamstrung by the history of Myst, and as such can go in different directions and be more like an actual video game and less like a walking simulator, while still being very pretty and interesting. Let's see. Well, TechRaptor has this article. It is Nutaku's 6th birthday, so they're giving sales out for lewd adult games, slight discounts, not anything really great, and they're still pushing their products. They seem to have been, Nutaku seems to have been completely unaffected by the Pornhub purge that recently happened, which makes a lot of sense that they wouldn't be affected since they're just publishing games and there aren't any unverified accounts on Nutaku publishing anything.
I'll take care of them.
I guess, and that. Borderlands 3 tweeted out this picture with Bernie Sanders bundled up and with a bit of an art filter on it. People are memeing this image that they got of Bernie Sanders. From what I read, his friend or a family member knitted him these mittens, and you can't really blame an old man for being bundled up on a cold winter's day. But I think people are probably reading into it more than should have been read into it, that he was just being persnickety and unhappy in the fact that he wasn't being sworn in as the president, which in fairness I could certainly see that. But yeah, they're making a lot of memes. Not too many of them are video game related, and it probably is best to not dip your toes into into politics as a video game company. And so this might have been yet another bad decision of Randy Pitchford, or it might have just been a bad decision of whoever runs the Borderlands 3 Twitter account, which I think is probably 2K more than Randy Pitchford. If it has come directly, if this had been a retweet from Gearbox, you could pretty much put the blame on Randy Pitchford, which we haven't heard any major complaints around Randy Pitchford's behavior lately. I think he's been mostly keeping to himself, and I also think he's trying to sell Gearbox, and so I wouldn't be surprised if they have come to he has come to some kind of initial agreement with somebody, and that has silenced him. So he just is going to stay quiet as the lawyers negotiate everything, and I wouldn't be surprised if a year from now, 6 months from now, maybe even 2 or 3 years from now, we're told that there's been this secret long-term negotiation for Gearbox to become a part of some other company or be bought by some other developer. What does this one do?
Help me, fairies. I'm gonna rest for a bit. Hey, let's play.
Hit that one. That one. Hit that one.
Blow on, dear wind.
There's literally nothing I can do here. I could attack this. G4 also did the same meme, taking an old X-Play video and putting him in it. They didn't put any kind of filter over him. Which, once again, G4 stepping into politics is it's not really the smartest move. I don't think I saw any other video game memes of Bernie Sanders, but I imagine by Monday we will have more memes. Will they be news? Not really, but it is worth pointing out. I have not had a single drop frame or a network problem today. That is really great news. The only bad news is we're still kind of struggling to get victories. I would need 2 more victories here. I don't know if I'm going to do that before I run out of news, and then I just want to wrap this up because I'm about to fall asleep. Here we have a Gamma Sutra article. Team 17 acquires Golf with Your Friends franchise for $16.4 million, which it seems weird that Team 17, which is the Worms company, is buying other games instead of just making new games, but I don't know if they've had major success with the Worms games lately either. You know, Gamma Sutra has a blog, The Scary Secrets of Horror Design from Silent Hill for the Room, which I was just talking about earlier, the natural almost worship people have for Silent Hill games, and the Room is not even one that people particularly liked. Interestingly, that page did not load any of the images. First time. Here we go. So I think this is the room. You have this like face in the shadows, and then I think this is the room. And this might be the room. Nope, this is Five Nights at Freddy's. And this is clearly Resident Evil 4. It probably says something about the quality of your article if you have a blog opinion piece called The Scary Secrets of Horror Design for Silent Hill 4 The Room, and then you can only bother to put up 2 images from Silent Hill 4 for the Room, and then put up 2 images from 2 completely unconnected games, even if those other 2 images are supposed to be references to elements that were added to later games. Moving on, TechRaptor has an article. The new Sims 4 update lays the foundation for paranormal stuff. Okay. Yeah, Sims seems to keep on chugging along, and nothing they add I think is ever going to convince me to be interested in it.
It was nearly done. Yeah. Stay away.
Open Critic has an article here. Stadia's exclusive state share feature arrives in the Hitman trilogy. State Share is a Stadia exclusive feature that allows players to create a shareable link to their video game sessions precisely as they left them. Think of it as a Google Doc, but with video games. In the feature's debut alongside game creation station Crayta, C-R-A-Y-T-A, players could create shareable game builds with others so they could instantly and easily collaborate. That really doesn't feel like a video game feature as much as just a bunch of nerds at Google thinking of something that I will admit sounds fairly cool, but does not immediately seem like a smart thing that you would want to work on. I cannot easily think of any instance where I would be so good at a game that I'd want to share its state and other people would want to start playing from that point. And if it was just a case of I was having trouble at a specific point on a game and wanted somebody else to play for me, I don't think that feature allows you to do that.
I won't hurt you. Too much.
You will soon
Oh my, this packs more trouble than it's
Moving on, TechRaptor has an article here. Skyblivion devs detailed remastered quests and environments. Skyblivion, I assume, is a fan-made attempt to remaster Oblivion in the Skyrim engine, which is also like way too old to still be using the Skyrim engine. And people are going to be super disappointed when the next Elder Scrolls game comes out and it's running on like Unity or Unreal, and all the effort and all the mods just are completely incompatible. In all fairness, this mod, even in its current state, looks a lot more interesting to play than trying to play the original Oblivion game. But at a certain level, looking back is not going to serve your interest at all. People need to look at other games or completely just give up on the Elder Scrolls series until a new game comes out. Here, Gamma Sutra has a blog. Steam, quote, prologues, do they really help? Which is a question I'd like to know, and I kind of would like to say, I think maybe not. The trend for prologues really hit big in April or May of 2020 when I noted 4 or 8 new and trending games were free prologues. This was part of a wider game discovery co-musing on demos and prologues, which included a picture of Larry David shrugging as my conclusion. We're nothing if not professionals here. Let's see. So
There you are, my little trespasser.
So their discoveries seem to be that if you release a prologue version of your game after the full version of the game is already out, in order to juice sales, that seems to be like a marginal tactic. Games like Fantasy General 2 and Rising Hell led to about 5 extra reviews. Those who are careful about what content they give out to in a prologue have a better prologue review to final game review ratio, which almost argues that the prologue has all the good content. Conversely, there are games that are casually fun or entertaining to play, but do not have a lot of in-game progress. They can rack up a lot of prologue players, but from a group less likely to buy the full game. And he says here, I don't believe it significantly affected game sales negatively or positively. You can also give away too much of the game. This is basically just listing every option and saying here. Dreamscaper's prologue says it's 4 to 6 hours of unlockable content. That's a lot considering the 2-hour refund policy. You can argue that a prologue going viral with almost 2,000 reviews added interest that would never otherwise existed. Nonetheless, its prologue to full release ratio isn't great. I guess that's what happened to Dreamscaper's prologue. So the conclusion here is we don't think player downloads of prologues are a major source of high quality wishlist, at least not compared to e.g. streamers. But since streamers can also play your demos, we still think having them available for a limited time at Steam festivals is a good tactic. But if you're going to make a prologue, why limit it to just a few days? That seems kind of crazy.
May the forest be at peace. This evergreen sword will cut through their ranks. It won't be long now. I will protect the peace of the forest for the queen.
Well, that killed a lot of people.
Sink into degeneracy.
I won't waver.
I can't suppress this
I'm
craving.
scrolling down this article to see if there's anything else more interesting to say. So yeah, generally it seems like even from game developers and Gamma Sutra articles, there doesn't seem to be a significant amount of success with prologues.
Let's play.
Which would also certainly explain why we've stopped seeing a lot of them coming out.
Consider my interest piqued.
The better question certainly to ask is why was Valve so interested in people making demos and prologues, and how did Valve convince a whole bunch of people to make prologues? Like, whose pet project was this, and what were they trying to accomplish? Is the bigger question. Moving on, we have a game on Steam here called Don't Cheat on Me, which seems to be a sex game of some sort, or a dating game of some sort that's multiplayer. $7.19, online PvP. Sounds weird, to say the least. Let's see. What can we do? Put this on the field,
Hey, let's play.
and then can't evolve, so we gotta do this. And hit that.
Let's play. Yeah.
Do that. Well, Don't Cheat on Me is already mixed reviewed, and it's way too expensive at $7.19, so I'll skip that one. We have about 10 more pages. the game Ender Lily's Quietest of Nights is now available in early access on PC. This is one we've been keeping our eyes on. Is it on Steam? Yeah, early access on Steam. I don't want to play it in early access now. TechRaptor has an article here. Immortals Phoenix Rising gets a new Blood of Zeus quest, which seems to be based on the Blood of Zeus Netflix anime, for lack of a better term. I remember this came out about a month ago and kind of totally forgot about it. I don't think it has anything to do with Immortals Phoenix Rising as a game, other than both are kind of set in a Greek pantheon world.
Let's play. Let's play. Let's play.
Next, we have a game on Steam called Aim Academy. This is obviously just an aim trainer for $3.99 English only. We definitely don't need more of those on Steam. TechRaptor has an article here. Unlimited spin-offs. What's next for Star Wars games with no EA exclusivity? I think we probably have a decent number of Star Wars games in development, but I also wouldn't be surprised if several of them got canceled or delayed to the point where we aren't ever really flooded with Star Wars games.
What an oath.
Which, that would be ideal. We don't want to water down the brand more than it already has been. That being said, that TechRaptor also has this article where classic Super NES Star Wars games are now playable on PC. The question, I suppose, is what platform are these being available? Antstream Arcade, which is £9.99 a month to play these old games, which honestly I don't think anybody should feel particularly bad if they were playing these just by getting the ROM somewhere and using an emulator instead of going to some kind of weird service that I've never heard of, and I don't think most people have heard of. Techland tweeted, to improve means to get better. That's exactly what we want to do in 2021. That's why we'll be featuring a series of new themes. We'll begin with Techland as a place. We're going to share with you all the important details about where we stand, our growth, and our goals, which I don't know if that means Techland is going to put out a whole bunch of like preachy SJW messages, or if they're just trying to keep people engaged because they're delayed once again, potentially, from releasing the next game that they're supposed to be working on. Dying Light 2, yeah, is what they're not talking about. Instead, here we have a Gamma Sutra article. Microsoft is raising the price of 2 Xbox Live Gold subscriptions. Let's see, the 1 month is going from going up $1 to $10.99. The 3 month is going up $3. So immediately you know it's cheaper to go up or go to buy 1 month, except for it isn't cheaper because this is $30 where this would be $33. 6 months and 12 months remain unchanged, which I don't know how many people that would really affect. It's kind of nice to not have a subscription like that you're paying for, though, PC Master Race type stuff, rah. Like, because there definitely would have been many months in which I would have not played something on the Xbox in the past few years. And frankly, even when I was exclusively playing Xbox 360 and that was my console of choice, there probably was a month or two in which I did not use that Xbox feature, the Xbox Live feature, really. Moving on, Gamasutra has an article. Codemasters directors have voted in favor of the $1.2 billion EA acquisition, which, okay, that's not super surprising. It could have gone the other way. I would have believed that too, but I imagine the board just wants to get whatever money they can get and move on. Epic Games Store says they're investigating reports of Epic Ubisoft account linking issues, and they will keep everyone updated when they have more information. That was 3 hours ago. There's been no new update. So they have no new information apparently. It could easily be a very big nightmare to try and integrate two very separate servers and services together. Let's see. TechRaptor has an article here for a game called Ocean's Heart, which I've never seen before, but it seems like it is somewhat inspired by Zelda, the Legend of Zelda, the original game. Yeah, or heavily inspired by it, frankly. You give it a 7.0 when it isn't going through the motions of its main story. Ocean's Heart is an imaginative retro adventure worth your time. Solid puzzle and overworld design, great side quests and optional content, good checkpoints and user experience elements. Cons are slightly unpolished combat, serviceable but forgettable main quest. So the bigger question is, it's coming out July 21st. Is it coming out on PC? Because that's the bigger issue, certainly, is this is not coming out on the Steam storefront. Then it's so much in the same vein as a Zelda game that there's a little difference there. But I definitely would also have to bend over backwards to wishlist this game, because I'd have to get reviews that override the TechRaptor review. Yeah, they're not saying what platforms it's on, even. So, I mean, I can assume it's PC, but I could be totally wrong. So we'll just have to wait and see where it comes out, when it comes out. Moving on, Gametsu has an article, Yumi Nico When They Cry Saku Nico Bako to Mosu no Hakyo Kyo Q launch trailer. So that is a big long-running name for a visual novel series that is a long-running visual novel series. Seems like this is probably a spin-off series. The Yumi Nikki series seems like it's a horror series, and also seems like it's a fairly weird series also. And then there's like a fighting game that they're highlighting also, so that's probably a cross promotion with some fighting game publisher, if I was to guess.
No one I've lost. Hey, let's play. You're
go. See, next we have a game called Space Nations Battle Arena, which looks like a space game, and it looks visually polished enough. It's early access, $13.99 English, but it's online player versus player, so that's not the kind of game I'd ever want to play. So I can ignore it.
Hey, let's play.
Just got about 5 more tabs, so this will be our last game. TechRaptor has an article here. Genshin Impact 1.3, All That Glitters releases February 3rd. Genshin Impact still getting things. Anime boy, I assume. Otherwise, very transparent or clear shirt or missing shirt. Maybe there's an anime girl in it. I assume this is an anime boy, but it's kind of hard to tell. And typically I don't have that problem. I know a lot of other people seemingly jokingly have that problem. It is a white shirt. His name is Zhao, and he does look like a guy to me. Yeah, he's a guy. Seriously?
There you are, my little trespasser. What an oath.
It won't be long now. So smart. Yeah. Stop.
Keep on attacking, keep on pushing. Gamatsu has the same article here. 1.3 update adds the Lantern Rite Festival. And they have the videos here. Several different videos.
This armor's turning out pretty useful.
No one's getting
And then Gamatsu has an article here. Grand Blue Fantasy versus DLC character Anrei launches January 26th. Which, this is a character we've seen Shadowverse advertise. So, in a weird way, it seems like they advertised the new characters for Grand Blue Fantasy versus before they even released it in their own game. Which that seems fairly crazy. So ideally, I'd want to get one more victory with Forestcraft, and then I'd get all my daily quests done. But we only have one more tab to talk about. This is called Stream Quest, which is just another game that your streamers would play while you're just chatting. Your streamers fans would play while you're just chatting away. It's early access, $9.99. I feel like this is the same person making several different games, but there's no indication to prove that. But yeah, it's all just the same concept though. It's like having someone else play games while you just sit around and talk. Just having other people create your content for you, which, don't get me wrong, if I could get away with it, I'd probably do it myself. But I know I can't get away with it, and I know that wouldn't be entertaining, and I know the vast majority of streamers that tried to even use a software like that would quickly find there's just not enough people for it to be interesting. Things like Twitch Plays Pokemon only works when you have a lot of hype behind it. Well, the Humble Bundle does have a new games bundle here, the Built to Survive bundle. So for $1 you get Deadly Days, a game I don't think I have. And then if you pay more than the average, which is already up to $8.46, you get Generation Zero, Memories of Mars, Life is Feudal Your Own, and Mad Max, which I think I own Mad Max, but nothing else. If you pay $10, you get World War Z Game of the Year Edition and Genesis Alpha 1 Deluxe Edition, which not a terrible offering for me, particularly. Then that just brings me back to my Twitter feed, so let's see. 1 minute ago, Epic said the Epic Ubisoft account linking issues have been resolved. Looks like the Godot engine is trying to, which is a game engine that I don't particularly recommend people learn, but it is used by a few programmers. They're trying to have kind of their own little conference. And have people chat on Discord. Let's see, what else? Got a new game that looks like an MMO released on Steam. TechRaptor is doing a giveaway for Spellbreak Chapter 1 if you're interested in that. It's a low effort game on Steam. TechRaptor has an article about ReZero, starting life in another world, the prophecy of the throne. Interesting that they're talking about a visual novel. Let's see. Keep on scrolling down. Boy, and so he puts out some more shift keys. Let's see. Is there anything new? The remake of Resident Evil 4 quietly delayed several years, according to TechRaptor, according to reports, which I wouldn't be surprised about that. This is the official remake of Resident Evil 4, not the unofficial fan game of a remake of Resident Evil 4, which I feel like that's probably only a year or two away from being done. Let's see. The SpongeBob game is now on mobile. Keep on scrolling down. Hey, a hidden object game. We haven't even seen one of those in a while. I'm opening up a decent number of new tabs. Let's see. Some new people have joined Second Dinner, the Ben Brode company, both of which were former Blizzard employees. No big surprise there. They're basically taking everybody they like from the Blizzard side. Keep on scrolling, keep on scrolling. I'm hearing a lot of people kind of being bored with Twitter. I don't see how I could take it out of my workflow, though. I'm not sure that many people were particularly interested ever in Twitter. But I will be really out of luck if people stop posting video game news on it. So here we have a game on Steam called Ceres, which looks like a MMO RPG game. Looks pretty, but it also feels like it might just be a Chinese MMO. $12.99 single player online PvP in-app purchases. Well, it's Korean, if anything. That's the only other language besides English that has full audio. I'll put this on the follow list, but I don't know how I can justify that price and potentially playing a single player element without really knowing what part of it is actually the single player element, and I don't know how much of this game it's just a lot of fancy anime girls and how much of this game has actual gameplay of any interest. Next we have a game on Steam called Zardy's Maze, which is clearly a dark screenshot horror game, asset flip. It's free, English only. It's a little early for Halloween for a game like that to be released. Next we have a game called Space Assault, which looks like a space game. Space fighting game. $8.99. English full audio, a bunch of other languages. I'll put that on the follow list. So yeah, TechCrafter has this review for ReZero, which, yeah, by the looks of it, it doesn't visually look that good. And they're giving it a 5.0. Strong visuals and unique gameplay can't save ReZero starting a life in another world. The Prophecy of the Throne. Only fans will be able to stick out to the end. The cons are the writing feels bloated, the plot is too obvious, not enough of a mix between gameplay and novel moments. The only good parts are well done visuals and animation, and the indirect gameplay is unique and interesting. So that's a pretty low article. Resident Evil 4 remake quietly delayed, reports say, according to TechCrafter, and video game. I think it's VG 24/7 actually. Capcom has not yet officially announced the Resident Evil 4 remake. However, a series of leaks were uncovered last year after a ransomware report captured more than a terabyte of files from the Japanese company. Leaks at the time said the remake was expected to arrive in 2022, but a new report indicates that's no longer the case. Yeah, VGC, Video Game Chronicles, I think, is not VG 24/7. M2 was apparently working on it, which may mean that they're just bringing it more in-house. So, rumors and on top of rumors, now it's expected to come out in 2023. Yeah, I don't think you really should hold your breath for a RE4 remake anytime soon. Here we have Gamatsu with the same article here. The RE4 remake overhauled as Capcom Development Division 1 takes over, so it seems like they're probably fast-tracking it in importance, or putting it as a higher priority by no longer letting a third-party developer work on it. This is an interesting picture, but I don't think this ever is used in any other promotional material I've seen for RE4. Seems like this is almost a fan compilation. It's not a lot to say about rumors on top of rumors. I am at a point where I would be willing to play Resident Evil 4 as it stands right now, and I will play the remaster a year from now if it came out, and I would play a remaster 2 years from now if it came out. So I would probably be willing to play the Resident Evil 4 game as it is on Steam now, and then immediately play the remaster back to back, and I would be more than happy with that. Next, we have a game on Steam here called Bushfire's Animal Rescue, which is an interesting thought, but it seems kind of dangerously not kid-friendly for a game that looks like it's kid-friendly. The idea that there's Australian bushfires happening, there's killing lots and lots of animals, is probably not something you want to make obvious to kids. It's free to play, English full audio. Seems like it's early access with no real monetization. So I don't know if it's going to be that interesting. Here we have the Time Machine Find Hidden Objects pictures. This is from Crisp Air Studio. I haven't seen this company before. What are they charging? $3.59. Finally, somebody releasing a hidden object game at a reasonable price. And seems like they are mostly making kind of low effort hidden object games based on very generic concepts. But I can see Beauty and the Beast, for instance, here. It was mostly positive reviews. But at a certain level, I don't even know if I want Beauty and the Beast on my wish list. I actually have no idea why I would want it on my wish list. Because I don't see any reason to play any more hidden object games. Gametsu has an article here. The puzzle adventure game Arog is coming to PS5 and PS4 on February 5th. Which, okay. Was Arog a game we've seen recently? Nope. This definitely looks fairly new and slightly weird. VGC is Video Games Chronicle. Here we have My Jigsaw Adventures Forgotten Destiny, which is just a jigsaw puzzle game for $4.49. It was the lead writer for Mass Effect 2 that came out and said that Jack was supposed to be pansexual, which I don't know if that means Jack. That probably means that they aren't the lead writer anymore. For anything. Okay. Do I need to go once again to my Twitter feed? No, probably not. It's not like there'd be an amazingly long list of new things. Okay, well, we mostly got everything done. I definitely need to go to sleep at this point. But at least I managed to make a stream happen today, whereas otherwise it may not have happened. I need to get one quick victory with this, and that will get rid of these quests. And then I need to get back to playing The Walking Dead. That's it for the stream. As always, I ask you to like, share, subscribe, comment, and watch every second of my videos. If you want to friend or follow me on any social media sites, there's a whole bunch of links down below. And if you want to support me further, there's a link to Patreon, or you can friend me on Steam and gift me a game off my wishlist. Thank you for watching. Have